If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I would ask everybody to please mute or turn off your cell phones. And if there's anybody in the audience that is videotaping or recording this message, could you please state your name and address?
I'm doing it. Theo McCleary.
Perry, Sarah Means.
Anybody else? Okay. Before we get started, I'm just going to make a few general statements. I'm going to ask that during the meeting that all members of the audience, members of council, conduct themselves in an appropriate and dignified manner.
Is your mic on?
Do we have it? Yeah, you want to hit that button?
Perry, before you make a statement, you have to have like a roll call.
Well, I was trying to do this before the meeting started. So if we can conduct ourselves, if there is any egregious disruptions, I will ask people to leave the meeting. So I'm sorry. If we could continue on, if you could do a roll call.
Roll call for February 22nd, 2022. Scott Sidlow. 16th, I'm sorry. February 16th. It's right on the paper. I got it wrong. February 16th, 2022. Parkside Borough roll call. Scott Sidlow.
Present.
Anna Guy.
Yeah.
Michael Costigan.
Present.
Shirley Purcival.
Here.
Robert Powers.
Here.
Doug Bull.
Here.
And Perry Sweigart.
Here.
That's complete for the roll call.
Do
Do you want to do attendance?
Professional staff.
professional staff as well.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Mayor,
For
if
our
you want to
code-
just kind of go around and make it easier on yourself. You want to start with Mayor Roman.
Okay, for the mayor, Kim Roman,
Here.
Shirley Purcival,
Solicitor.
Peter Amuso
Peter
here.
Abuso. I'm sorry, I have you for the attendance, Peter Abuso. Then our from
Engineer.
Joe Roto.
right, and our treasurer,
Donna Stillwell.
Donna Stillwell,
Chief Murray.
Chief Murray.
and Chief Murray,
I'm here.
And Code Enforcement Officer
code enforcement
Capobianco.
officer, Capobianco. It's my first day. First day, people. First day. Thank you for your patience.
Do we have correspondence? I'm not sure.
There was one letter, I think this was dated January 20th, 2022, on behalf of Chester Crumlin Watershed Association. Thank you for your generous donation of $100 for the 2021 season. With this charitable donation, we have been able to continue our care for the natural resources of the watershed. Thank you again for your support and your generosity. And that was Susan Eldridge, Development and Events Coordinator, and Ted Lessing, Board President. That's the letter we received. And this says from Ed Fisher, January 10th, January 2022 at 7, I'm sorry, this is for later. I apologize. That's for taxes. And that's all the correspondence that we got. The Ed Fisher is for later for taxes.
All right, thank you.
That's it.
Mayor's report. Mayor Roman.
Okay, for crimes in January, motor vehicle theft is 1, disorderly conduct 1, calls for service, most prevalent, suspicious persons 7, Medical emergencies, 4. Assistant other agencies, 20. Domestic, 3. Accidents, 2. Traffic detail, 34. Motor vehicle stops, 42. Traffic citations, 32. Warnings, 7. Non-traffic, 2. The motor vehicle that was stolen was recovered the same day in Chester. There's an ongoing investigation into this theft as a suspect has been developed.
Great.
And then if you want to go,
Yep.
well, do you want the chief to do his report and then we'll do the swearing?
Yeah. Chief Murray, do you have anything?
What I was going to do is just introduce the new part-time officer, okay, and then have the mayor swear him in, okay? So, Nick, why don't you come up and join me? Is your fiance going to hold the Bible for you? Come on up. So Nick DiDonato is going to come on as a part-time officer. Nick comes to us with extensive police experience. He retired from Philadelphia Police Department in 2015 after 21 years of service with Philly PD. Began his career in patrol, ended up in investigations with the District Attorney's Office in the city of Philadelphia. During his time with Philly PD, he worked in the Vice Unit for numerous years and received numerous commendations from to his work in the Vice Unit. Currently, Nick is an investigator with the Rite Aid Corporation. In order to be hired here in Parkside, because Nick had been gone from the police business for 6 or 7 years, he had to go back to Hershey and retake the test that we now take to certify police officers after the police academy, which when Nick started, that wasn't a procedure. So Nick went up to Hershey, he got that taken care of, he passed that test, and then he went through everything that all the other part-timers go through when we hire them, and that's a physical, a polygraph, a psychological, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Nick has passed all of those. So tonight I've asked the mayor to swear Nick in, and we'll get him started here in Parkside. So, Madam Mayor.
Repeat after me. I, Nicholas DiDonato,
I, Nicholas DiDonato,
do solemnly swear that I will support,
do solemnly swear that I will support,
obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States,
obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the laws of Pennsylvania,
the laws of Pennsylvania,
and the ordinances and regulations of Parkside Borough.
the ordinances and regulations of Parkside Borough.
I also swear that I will uphold,
I also swear that I will uphold,
obey, and enforce
obey, and enforce
the law without consideration
the law without consideration
to a person's race,
to a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap, or disability.
handicap, or disability.
I will perform the duties
I will perform the duties
of patrol officer
of patrol officer
in the Borough of Parkside
in the Borough of Parkside
with fidelity and honor
with fidelity and honor
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Mayor, can I? You both move over. Mayor's gonna sign, and then you can sign. I'll make a copy of it, put it in your file. So you sign right here.
I'm just waiting for it to sign.
So we have to notarize? Yeah.
Mayor, anything else at this time?
That's it. Thank you.
At this time, we'll have a call to citizens for agenda-related items only. You want to step up to the podium, give us your name and address, please?
Hi, my name is Robert Jovanovich.
Go ahead.
I hear that the borough is making moves to hire a part-time webmaster for the borough's web.
There is no hiring that's not a paid position. We have somebody that's going to,
But so you're appointing a person to that responsibility.
yes, in an unpaid capacity.
I heard that. Now, I'm also hearing rumblings that this person does not have data analytics experience or Web3 experience or data archiving experience such that would make accountability easier for them.
I'm gonna just stop for a second because this isn't on the agenda for tonight, so if you can wait till the call of citizens at the end of the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was the agenda tonight, that we were going to address the hiring of the new person. I'm sorry.
No, that position is not anywhere on the agenda for tonight's discussion.
Okay, I was mistaken. Thank you.
No problem, thank you. Anybody else call to citizens? And if you could state your name and,
Yes, Mark Campbell. I also don't see a discussion of our new solicitor here on the agenda. Has the contract actually been signed to bring the new solicitor on?
yeah, it's already, it's on.
Yeah, I mean, we've been appointed as solicitors, it's not on the agenda. I'm here.
And what are the terms of the contract?
This the appointment of the solicitor is not on the agenda for right now, so if you can wait till the end of the meeting, during the call to citizens later, we'll address it then,
Okay.
or at least we'll listen. But this was something that was brought up last month, and I believe Ms. Purcival went over the compensation during January's meeting.
Okay, I just have a couple legal questions to actually ask regarding that, regarding Pennsylvania state statute.
Okay. Anybody else for agenda-related items? And for the President's report, Council held an executive session on February 3rd to discuss the hiring of a new borough secretary, which we will have the official resolution later under our new business. So I want to initially thank Tamika and welcome Tamika Stamus as our borough secretary. And again, everything going on, I want to thank everybody that's been helping out around the borough in the office and everything, so we can cover everything that the borough secretary had to do and try to help bring Tamika up to speed on everything that we need done. So I thank everybody, council, mayor, everybody that's been helping out with this. At this time, I would like to make a motion to modify the agenda so that we could have the fire company present a report. Due to the length of last month's meeting, they were unable to speak. So could I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
So at this time, if
Sorry, we should vote on that
Oh,
motion.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
So there, motion to amend the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so moved. So at this time, if the representatives from Parkside Fire Department could come up.
Hello, Fire Chief Andrew Giuliano. How is everybody tonight? So I really don't have a report for you tonight. We were just allotted the fourth quarter check last week, so we haven't started dispersing funds, but that's going to be used for turnout gear in the tune of like up to $15,000 to purchase new members, new gear. And then the rest is going to be going to everyday bills and whatnot like that. So at next month's meeting and the following months, I'll have money reports for you of where the money was actually used at once we start dispersing it. So other than that, I don't have anything unless you guys have something for me.
Any questions from council? Sorry.
I just had a quick question.
Yes.
I saw there was is there a fourth fire truck?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm just
We are,
curious.
So we're going to be selling one fire truck. It's almost roughly 31 years old. It has some pump issues to it, and we actually got a donation of $25,000 to purchase one of the fire trucks that's sitting in the bay right now. So it was no money out to us, and we got lucky enough at the right time to be able to get another engine to help provide service in the town here. So you know, our apparatus is creeping up on almost 30 years, every piece. Even the new one we got, it's only a couple of years newer than what we're getting rid of, but it's in a little bit better shape to keep providing service, so. All right?
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Have you, is there a new treasurer in the fire company?
So it is still the outside gentleman right now. We are dealing with a third party, handling everything right now. There is a liaison to him that reports, you know, from him to the fire company, but as of right now, nobody in the company's handling money. It's all an outside party.
So you're an accounting firm or something like that?
I guess you can call him that, a financial advisor.
Okay.
Okay. You know what I mean? So, local guy in Aston.
Okay.
So.
And, so, does the fire company know its annual budget yet? Is that something that you've been able to figure out?
We know, you know what I mean? Like, we're waiting, we have so much work that we're doing right now that it's there, but we just don't have it solid right now. Because every day something new's popping up. Trainings are going up, gear's going up. So I'm gonna get guys fitted for gear with this check that just came in from you, from the council and the citizens here. And by the time that gear comes in, they can tell me it's an extra $200, $300. I'm not locked in on the price, you know. So it's kind of hard to set it, but we are in the process of that since this gentleman has taken over our finances and getting everything squared away for us and where we need to be at to do that.
So you're tracking the money as it comes in and as it goes out, but you don't have like an annual budget that you expect to have money to come in versus how much you expect to spend?
We're in the process of working on that. That's what I'll have over the next few months for you going forward, since he's just taken over and we're getting everything squared away.
Okay.
So I'll have a fourth quarter report for you, and then I'll have everything else going forward on what we're looking like for the year, how much we're projecting, all that type of stuff. So it's in the works, we're getting it done.
Good.
All right?
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Thank you.
Chief, thank you very much for coming out.
No problem. Have a good night, Joe.
I want to, if you and the other representatives from the fire company want to leave, totally understand. I know you guys got a lot. Okay. All right. All right. So, moving on, finance report, Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brinker and Simpson was fantastic in providing me with a report to date, which has all bank accounts are reconciled through January 2022, except for the WSFS General Fund. They don't have a bank statement as of yet, or as of the writing of the report. They are included a bank reconciliation and statement for all funds for council's approval. Sorry if I cut off part of that one. We are still waiting for online access to bank accounts at Sharon Bank, TD Bank, and Pliget. I believe those are moving in the right direction as well. They do recommend that we consider paying off the tax anticipation note with funds from the TD account, and they are continuing to establish automatic payments for things like the copier lease and utility payments and things of that nature. The general fund for the period of 1/18/22 through 2/14/22, there was $13,145 in earned income tax funds were deposited, and $103,000 of vendor payments were issued. Excluded from these amounts were the reissuance of replacement checks for the 2017 fire relief payment. And during this period, $36,785 of deposits were received into the Sharon Bank General Fund, and $36,000 of expenses were paid, including payroll. Only things redacted from the report were date changes for the Liquid Fuels Fund audit, and that is it for the report. I would like to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Second. All those, wait, any questions?
Yes, sir. I noticed, as Vice President read, the recommendation was to pay off the transfer loan, and I disagree with that. I'm hoping we don't go forward with that for many reasons. One of which is that this is only February and we don't know what kind of emergencies we're going to be facing from now until June. And if you look at the total of income in that account, it's $398,091. This also includes the COVID money and the trans $100,000. So that's $200,000 right off the top of that $389. I think it's a poor decision, and that's only my opinion. If you look at the second page, or the page 1 of the figures of the balance sheet, as of January 31st, 2022, as a comparison with January 31st, 2021, you're going to see that there is a change of $191,155. However, for those members that were on council, you may remember this time last year, our trans money was late coming in, and that showed the difference in that amount. Mrs. Higgins and I had to meet after the holidays to re-sign papers for Sharon Bank, so that the trans funds was late coming in. So in essence, there would only be a $91,155.15 difference. And that difference equates to council in the prior year being very diligent on not spending. So I don't see a necessity to pay off that loan right now when we're only in February.
I absolutely concur. I
Thank
mean,
you.
if they're posting 7%, you know.
7%,
of rates.
$7,000?
No, they're posting inflation reports at 7%, and this money was borrowed at a much lower rate, so that would be indicative of almost free money. So.
And it also, our police
understand.
overtime is at 19% right now, and this is only the second month. And with the cost of gasoline, our gasoline just for the police department is at 10% right now. And we're headed to $4 a gallon. So to pay off the trans loans right now would, I don't agree with it, but that's, again, it's my opinion.
It was only a recommendation. I read it. It's not for a vote.
Thank you.
Can we hear Donna's take on it?
So the money that you received for the ARP, you can use that money. The only reporting that you need to do based off of the final ruling is that you needed the money because to replace revenue. So that money is available. That's the final ruling. We just have to fill out a form that says we're using the money to replace revenue. There's no audit for that money. You would not be subject to a single audit for it because it's under $750,000. The reason I suggested is because you're paying interest on money that you don't need, and you're not getting interest on that money sitting in the bank. But if council is more comfortable with that, it was just a recommendation. Because you have more money in the bank right now than you did last year.
How much would we save if we paid it off?
It's not that much, but it's still money. It's like I think the interest was like $3,000.
$3,000? Okay,
Yeah.
That's a lot of money around here.
$3,000 is a lot of money. Unfortunately, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months even. If we had a storm inlet collapse, as many of us who were on council prior know, what that's going to cost. And
the majority of taxes comes in by the end of March, right, or April?
No, majority of taxes won't be in until.
Point of order. This is my report. If anybody wants to solicit anything, send it in writing. We'll make sure you get answers.
Aren't we discussing the report?
This is the council meeting.
Right, we're discussing the report. I'm not sure what the concern is.
We've gone down into small parts of it that would not be decided tonight. There was no decision made. I read the report.
The report was
We're not
just
deciding
making
if
a
it's getting
recommendation.
paid.
It wasn't a motion to.
Okay.
There's no discussion.
We're
There's
accepting the
no-
report.
We're accepting the
That's
report
the
with
only thing
a
about the
recommendation,
report.
not a moving forward to pay it off. It was just a treasurer's recommendation. Any other discussion on the report?
So in the past, we've never had the Pliget account. I'm not familiar. So we've always had,
Yes.
we always had two bank accounts that we were reported on in previous years, not that third Pliget bank account. What is Pliget? I never even heard of that.
Pliget is I think,
Pennsylvania local government trust.
right, but I think they were always on here. It's not
That's
like they
correct.
weren't on here. They
That's
were always
correct.
on the balance sheet. They were always on there. I didn't just add them this year. They've been on
Didn't
there.
get reports on them every month.
No, we've never seen those reports before.
So, in other municipalities that we've been audited, one of the recommendations was, from an internal control standpoint, that we provide the bank statements and bank reconciliations for council to approve to help strengthen the internal control. So that's why we provide everybody with the bank statements and bank reconciliations. So whether they were provided before in the past, it doesn't matter. It's just that was the way we've done it based off an audit reports that we've received. So the prior financial director might not have received that same recommendation from the auditor.
Okay. And what is that, what is in that account? What is that, what are those funds at?
The budget really isn't that, doesn't have that much in it.
$800 and some dollars.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only $800? Okay.
Yeah. It's the TD Bank account and the Sharon Bank account are the main accounts for the general fund. In the TD Bank account gets deposited all the local enabling taxes. So EITs, LSTs are going directly into the TD Bank account. The Sharon Bank account is where we do the day-to-day deposits.
Any other questions on the treasurer's report? We have a motion and a second to accept the treasurer's report. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So moved.
Okay, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All those in favor of paying the bills? Aye. All those opposed? So moved.
Moving on to the open space report, some discussions with the engineering firm about how some of the MS4 may be actually able to be utilized down there. And as far as that, but at this time, it would be general progress.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. Police Public Safety Report, Mr. Costigan.
Sure. So I had a very productive meeting with the Chief Murray. We discussed some different things, the operations of the police department, some concerns he had. Hopefully we can address those more towards the budget process. But those discussions will be forthcoming. And I can just report general progress other than that. With recreation, we had a very successful first meeting of the Recreation Committee. I'd like to thank everybody that came and offered your time and support for that meeting. We're hoping to plan a lot of events for this year, and we're soliciting some feedback from the public, from residents. So there's a survey that's been posted on the Borough Facebook page and some different Facebook pages. And there's also paper copies here in the Borough Hall, if you'd like to pick those up to give you feedback on past events you have, or if you have an idea for something new, if you'd like to participate in planning these events, you could fill that out and leave it here in the Borough Hall if you're doing it on paper. Otherwise, it's electronic. So we'll take that feedback and really try to see what the public wants, what you're interested in, and then build events off of that. So our next meeting will be, this is a Thursday meeting. It won't be on Wednesday like the others are. Thursday, March 3rd at 6 p.m. in the Borough Hall. So if you're interested to help plan events with us, feel free to join. That's Thursday, March 3rd at 6 p.m. We're going to be planning our Easter festivities and discussing a potential craft fair. So if you're interested in any of those events, everybody's welcome. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Costigan.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes.
Mike, why wasn't the mayor and myself invited to the public police committee meeting that you had with the chief?
It wasn't a public meeting. I was just in my.
It was a police committee meeting, correct?
No, it wasn't a committee meeting. I was just in my role as a new council member and as the president of the committee. I was just going to meet with him and just get to know him. And over that course of the meeting, we talked about some different things. No decisions were made or anything like that. I will certainly inform the committee of anything that comes up.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yep.
All right. Ordinance report, Mr. Sidlow.
General progress for ordinance, yeah, I would like to take a look at how we define who lives with each other and how that is, how the borough code defines who habitates with who and what is a legal habitation and what is an illegal habitation. So I'll be looking at that over the course of the next month, but general progress so far. And then licenses and inspections, there were 3 building permits, 3 plumbing permits, 1 electrical permit, 18 use and occupancy, and 2 re-inspections. And I don't know if we have the current certifications from the building inspectors on file in the borough office, but I'd like to make sure that we have everything, all the current certifications from all the building inspectors available, so we'll be working on that.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Sidlow, are we going to define what is a legal habitation? Is that what you're saying?
Well, currently the code does. It's, you know, it says, I don't remember the wording exactly, but it, you know, the code currently defines that like a boyfriend and a girlfriend can't live together legally. So there are some flaws in the definitions of our current code that could not be considered relationships that are appropriate relationships.
Just to clarify, you're talking about as far as when a place is considered a rental?
That too as well.
We're not talking about, like, we're not making judgments on people's relationships. You're not saying that. What we're saying is that, like, in the case where somebody had somebody else living in their house and it was considered a rental, we'd like to make sure that that confusion can't occur in the future, correct?
Exactly, yes, that's
But
correct.
then, isn't that regulated under the UCC property maintenance? So are we overseeing or changing the state regulations?
Let's get into this when we get into it. I'll lay out the existing code and I'll lay out what might be a possible new code and we'll have the
My
solicitor.
understanding is that the state supersedes us.
It does, depends on the area of the law. I know certainly definitions of families is common for local regulations, certainly when it comes to zoning, and I can take a look at see what the Alden Code says and compare that to state law, but certainly it's an issue that's dealt with at the local level a lot about what the definition of family is and how does that work, particularly when it comes to the zoning code of the borough, but we can look at it for other areas as well.
Yeah.
But you're right, the state law, if it exists, would supersede what the borough has.
Thank you.
We did review that about a decade ago.
Yes.
And the definition of family was definitely forced or most captured in that.
It probably is due for an update.
Yes.
It was inclusive at its right.
Any other comments? License and inspections? Okay, moving on. Code Enforcement, Mr. Capobianco.
Thank you, Mr. President. There were 2 violations of throwing snow back in the streets after they were plowed and salted. These 2 violations were people who just moved into Parkside and they didn't know any better, so there were warnings given on that. There was 1 illegal use and occupancy and tenant registration on the 200 block of East Avon, and they came into compliance, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much. All right, Public Works Property Report. Mr. Farrows, we'll start with you, and if you want to just go down the list, go right ahead.
Sure, thank you, Mr. President. Public Works, so far for the year, 19 tons of salt was used. The first storm, we used 3 tons of salt. Second storm, 6 tons of salt. And the third storm, 10 tons of salt were used. All borough properties have been maintained, and I can report general progress. As far as the health inspector, on January 31st, I had to appear in court for a civil issue due to a bed bug problem that stemmed from the summer. I don't know the outcome was. I was subpoenaed as a witness. There's 1 health investigation. It was closed with no further action. Fire marshal report. There were 12 fire emergencies in the borough, 1 ongoing fire investigation, 2 solar panel inspections, and fire inspections for commercial properties have begun. Emergency management coordinator. I'll be attending an incident command class on February 28th with no cost to the borough. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Powers. Any questions for Mr. Powers? Recycling MS4, Ms. Purcival.
Thank you, Mr. President. For January, our total was for recycling 12.36 ton. The trash was 69.73 ton. For the total recycling for 2021 was 93.05 tons. I'm pleased to say that we're going to be joining Brookhaven Borough on April 9th at 9 a.m. until noon at the Coburn Elementary School for a recycling and shredding event. Residents are required to have an ID with them for this event, and it's anything with a plug. We do need volunteers to check people's IDs, and the volunteers have to be there at 8:45 in the morning. I'd like to thank those who've already volunteered from council to do this. I'd also like to thank Brookhaven's Mayor, Denise Leslie, President of Council, Terry Hiller, and President Pro Temp, Donna Folks, who is coordinating this event. At this time, I'd like to amend my motion for a total cost of this project to be $700 and ask the treasurer to forward a check, which I understand she has done already, to Brookhaven Borough. Attention, Councilwoman Donna Folks.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to amend the cost of our recycling event, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved.
Thank you. Also, last month, we had presentation from Catania Engineering concerning the program with the MS4. Permit issues, pollution reduction plans. Options were mentioned, and I have reviewed the information that they had left in the office. One mention was a rain garden in the woodlot. This garden would require minimum maintenance, mulching every several years, and it would be a perennial flower garden. It would conform to our stormwater management practices and the borough's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, the NPDES. And I'd like to talk to the Open Space Committee, of which I am part, when we get to the next meeting, committee meeting on that, to install a rain garden there.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mrs. Percival. Okay, moving on, communications report, Ms. Guy.
Yes, we've had 2 meetings now of the Communications Committee, and we've got things lined up. People have taken on some responsibilities. Hopefully you all will enjoy the newsletter. Our next meeting is the 22nd on Tuesday at 6:30, and we expect our first issue of the newsletter to come out around the beginning of March. And you can get it either online or you can pick up a copy here in the office. And otherwise, general progress.
Thank you very much. All right.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'd like to thank Mr. McCleary for sending over his resume and apologize. I have bantered his last name around numerous times, and I have apologized to him in writing, and I'd like to apologize in public for screwing up your name more times than once.
Apology accepted.
All right. Okay, I know we have a tax collector's report because we started to hear it earlier.
Oh, yes. We did. Okay.
Report from Mr. Fisher.
Yes, okay, the report from Mr. Fisher. January 10th, 2022 to January 17th, 2022, the treasurer has received $1,016,232.11 to date. There was $14,286.11 in revenue deposited from January 10th to January 17th, 2022. This closes out the tax year of 2021, and I will be looking forward to doing taxes of 2022 for the coming year for the Borough of Parkside. Thank you. Eric Fisher.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the tax collector report? All right, moving on. Engineers report, Mr. Roto.
Thank you, Mr. President. Road Program 2022, the borough should consider adoption of the 2022 County Aid Resolution for liquid fuels.
Was
it a motion?
Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's a resolution?
Yes.
Do you want the council to approve tonight?
That was a plan. Lisa modified the agenda when it was sent over.
But I
that
never
item.
saw the resolution.
Okay, I'll check to see if there's still time to do so.
Well, do you think the borough would run out of time if it weren't to approve this resolution tonight?
Can we have time by March?
I mean, we could,
check with
you know, is there a deadline on the resolution?
I'm not positive of that right now.
Obviously, we don't want the borough to miss a deadline. If that were the case, I think there would be grounds then to have a motion to modify the agenda to approve to add the resolution. May I see the resolution, and maybe you could check with Lisa to see if there's a deadline on it? Is that the resolution?
No, it's not.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't see a resolution.
Okay. Oh, yeah, if we don't have one, it's...
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll take a look at that. If we have to call a special meeting so we can make sure we don't miss that deadline, we'll do so as on an as-needed basis.
That's a good idea.
I'll check tomorrow. Following two grant opportunities are up for a council decision on whether to move forward. Dcnr Grant, as mentioned last month, the borough is eligible for a small communities grant. Typical projects range from $50,000 to $70,000 with a maximum of $110,000. Anything in excess of $30,000 requires a 50-50 match. Potential projects will be to add accessible parking by the entrance to Woodlot, repair the riparian buffer and stream bank along the creek within the park, and possibly a rain garden, as Shirley mentioned, for compliance with the pollution reduction plan. The application deadline is April 6th, and just kind of want to get a feel on if that is something council would like to pursue.
I mean, we need to do the MS4 project, so if we can get them to pay for the rain garden.
It's a 50% match over how much money?
$30,000.
Over $30,000.
Can we put in for 25 and have no match?
Not to exceed.
It depends. We don't have to do all three of those options, the parking, the riparian buffer, and the rain garden. If it was just the rain garden and maybe the parking, we may be under the $30,000 anyway. We can certainly try to shoot for that. So
That would be wonderful is my thought.
Our long-term goal was to get the ADA accessible parking at the Woodlot. So it's something we pursue. We talked about it for years.
Yeah, we
That
did
was
not
on
get
our-
it the last
That was
round.
on our wish list though for the entrance down there for ADA parking.
Oh, yeah, for a long time.
Turn around for the police.
And if we can keep it, under the no match,
That would be
I think
perfect.
we should go for it.
maybe we can combine those two, the parking and the rain garden. We can do a cost estimate and see where we come up with the budget and try to stay under the $30,000.
I said we pursue it.
And I think some of it could possibly come under liquid fuels during the road program, as far as that, because you'd be developing handicap parking and things like that, I'm almost positive that could fall under liquid fuels. So between the two, I'd have to get clarification, but I would entertain a motion to start the process for a DCNR grant with intent to not exceed $30,000.
Okay.
As far as keeping that in mind, and then
I'll second that.
Any questions on the motion? So we have a motion to proceed with the DCNR grant for the projects of a rain garden and accessible parking down at the woodlot in an amount not to exceed $30,000.
So I think that's fine, but it wasn't on the agenda, so we should probably have a motion to add that to the agenda with the idea that we need to get started so that we don't miss any deadlines. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So first a motion to add that to the agenda and then a motion to approve it.
I prefer we vote on the.
I agree.
But don't we need, I mean.
Well, I'm just saying,
I understand what you're saying, but there's already a motion on the table, so that's.
All right, well,
I'm not saying it would take precedence, but moving forward, we can absolutely.
Because we're just looking at creating.
I understand, but so just so everyone knows, the state updated the Open Records and the Sunshine Act, and so now, whereas before you could easily add things to the agenda, we would just need to have public comment before that, but now you have to publish the agenda 24 hours in advance, which we've done. But if you want to add something, they have criteria for adding, whether it's an emergency, something that's come up, what they call de minimis, or they have something of a catch-all that says you can vote to add something to the agenda. So I just don't want us to get away from what the law is, which is if you're going to add something to the agenda like this, you can. You just simply have a motion, you state why you're adding it to the agenda, within 24 hours. And here it makes sense. We want to give the engineered direction. We don't want to let any deadlines slip by, but we want to make sure that we're getting into the right habits, I think. And again, the law is relatively new, and I think it's having a lot of unintended consequences, but nonetheless, it is the law. So I would say before you can consider this motion under the Sunshine Act, you would need to have a motion to add this motion, and the reason you're adding it is that you've just been alerted that there are certain deadlines coming up that you want to make sure the engineer has enough time to get the applications together.
Okay, before we, can I answer a question?
Sure.
Yeah, so it seems as though the engineer is soliciting opinions of council, we're not really voting on this plan or that plan or anything like that. So can this just be a discussion that we have expressed an interest in some of the ideas that were suggested by the engineer and not necessarily have to have a formal vote to agree with those? Not that I'm trying to get around the rules or anything like that, but.
Mr. President, this was discussed at, pardon me for forgetting her name, but she made many recommendations that were actionable recommendations, and the engineer has brought those to our attention. We'll make a motion to withdraw my motion, so we can make a motion to amend our agenda, if that is suitable to you.
Okay, so let's go through this. Okay, I have a motion to withdraw.
He's just, if I may, he made the motion, so he's simply withdrawing the motion. So the motion is withdrawn. And now there's a motion to amend our agenda to add the motion to apply for these grants in the amount not to exceed $30,000.
I'll second that.
And the reason for adding it is you've just been alerted to this deadline, and you want to make sure that the borough doesn't miss out on this money by waiting till the March meeting to give the engineer the specific direction.
So just so we're clear, the original motion to amend the agenda, Mr. Bull, correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Percival seconded the.
That's correct.
Okay, all those in favor of modifying the agenda to include the motion for the DCNR grant proposal?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay.
Right, now you can vote on the motion.
Okay. Mr. Bull, you want to make?
Would like to make a motion to allow the solicitor to start the
Engineer,
sorry. The engineering process for a DCNR grant not to exceed $30,000 without notification to look into developing a rain garden that would suffice, and that's for stormwater regulations in the woodlot.
And, well, and we want to include, I thought we wanted to also include the access.
Handicap parking access, or ADA compliant access for parking.
All right.
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to have the engineer prepare a proposal for DCNR grant for a rain garden and ADA compliant parking down at the woodlot in an amount not to exceed $30,000 without prior notification. Am I correct? On the motion. All right. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? So moved.
Could I just ask a quick question about this to the solicitor?
Yeah.
So, I mean, because shouldn't every motion really be on the agenda?
That would be ideal.
Right, because you want, I mean, like, if you're in the public, you want to be able to look at the agenda and know that we're going to be voting on this so that you can give your comment before we vote on it. Because, like, that we just brought on the agenda, so people didn't know about this, they couldn't comment. So, like,
I agree, and we weren't really spending money there either. It was really just giving forward direction to the.
Right.
But you're right, we're right, and I'll work with council to make sure that we have agendas that are sufficiently detailed.
And our
For sure.
secretary, in all fairness, has been with us for 1 week. So she would not know what to put on the agenda. So us as elected officials need to guide her before the next meeting when she sends out an agenda. And she says, is there any changes? Is there anything added or subtracted? You know what you're going to present 2 days before the meeting. We therefore need the responsibility of sending it to her. She's not a mind reader.
No, I wasn't saying anything like that. I was just saying any motion that you're planning to make really should be on the agenda so that people can comment about it.
And you need to
Going forward, I plan to do that job.
Oh, no, that's, we dropped the ball on that. No.
We did. We did.
Going forward.
And I further believe that agenda should be proactively emailed out to the community, along with the reports that we all get to see, including the treasurer's report.
Okay, we'll save that for a later discussion. Right now, we're in the solicitor's report. I'm sorry, engineer's report. We can get this.
Still one more grant opportunity that was mentioned last month as well, that the borough is eligible for a transportation improvement study grant. There's no match required for this grant. Potential project would be the study of Edgemont Avenue corridor to determine efficiency and also a long-range plan for the corridor. Application deadline is April 27th. And again, sort of the same situation as the previous grants.
And there is no match for this?
There's not. There used to be, and they removed it.
Great.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to apply for the
Hang on.
Stop.
Just, I know where this is going.
All right, so we'll just do the same thing. So if.
We will eventually get straight, folks. I apologize.
But I think to Mr. Costigan or Councilman Costigan's point, let's vote to amend the agenda and then see if there's any public comment on this transportation grant. Well, amend the agenda, make the motion, and then take public comment before it's voted on.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to add the transportation grant.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the agenda to include discussion on the transportation study grant.
And again, the reason for the last minute amendment is council just hearing about these deadlines, and it's important that we don't miss out, especially something that's no matching. So in order to make use of these funds, you need to give direction to the engineer tonight. That's why it's being added now within the 24-hour period, which I think is appropriate under the Sunshine Act.
So we have a motion, second. All those in favor of amending the agenda for the transportation? Aye. All those opposed? So moved.
All right, so now, if I may, Mr. President, we should take public comment on whether or not council should apply for this transportation grant, if there's any public comment on it.
Any public comment on the transportation grant application? You'd like to step up to the podium?
No.
Robert Shermanovich. Will the details and stipulations of such a grant and what the grant can or could be spent on be made available to public for comment? I only heard that it's a grant. I don't know what it intends to pursue or fulfill.
There's a whole PowerPoint that we can make available, and I believe we have. If not, we can make available to the borough for them to disperse. All the guidelines and everything for the grant are on DVRPC's website as well, and it's all available.
And if I may, I believe, so council is voting to authorize to apply for the grant,
Yes.
and then your office would report back whether or not the grant was granted, and then the borough would vote to accept the grant based on terms. So, once a grant is given, then it'll come back on the agenda, and the details will be made public.
Thank you. I was curious about that.
Any other public comments?
Now, I guess we need a motion then to apply for this grant.
I'll make a motion to apply for the
TCCDI.
TCCDI grants for a traffic study along Edgemont Avenue.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of applying for the transportation study grant? Aye. All those opposed? So moved.
General progress, I have nothing further to report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Sure. So, 6 to 8 months ago, we were concerned that the Edgemont Avenue was going to collapse into a big sinkhole, and we have not heard too much about that in recent months. Is Edgemont Avenue on the edge of collapsing, or do we have a problem we need to focus on? Like, do we have an update on anything? Do you know?
I was not made aware of that. I will certainly discuss that with Lisa tomorrow. And
I remember Mrs. Catania stated that the Edgemont Avenue will not collapse, and there were no immediate danger.
I'm over-exaggerating
As of being on the highway regularly, the last patch that put up there by PennDOT looks like moving well. So, I mean, it doesn't mean don't need to be fixed, but we were not in any danger of collapse, as you stated. Yeah, like to have it. Something like, I'm sorry.
That was 2 months ago when A.F. Damon came in and packaged it full of debris and, I shouldn't say debris because PennDOT wouldn't like that, millings, and then paved over it, and it is holding. We've developed another several small holes on Edgemont Avenue. If you come up and down Edgemont Avenue, you're going to see that some of those holes are starting to open.
So can you give us an update on Edgemont Avenue very quickly?
I will do that.
Any other questions for the engineer? Thank you, Mr. Sweigart. Solicitor's report.
Thank you. So I was able to meet with your former solicitor, Mr. Willis, who was very gracious, and I've got all the active files of the borough, and then we've been setting up systems with the treasurer, with the staff here at the borough for payment of, before we lien a property, we provide folks notice that their property is going to be liened so that they can have a chance to pay it off before it's liened. And so we've sent out those letters and setting up systems here. Now that you have staff and the deputy treasurer in place to pay those amounts, so we're getting that together. Like I said, I've gotten the active files from the previous solicitor, and I think we're settling in quite nicely.
Any questions for the solicitor at this time?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Purcival.
Sir, I'd like to know who authorized you on council to give the delinquent tax accounts a 30-day leeway to pay their taxes.
Sure. So that's under the state statute. So the way it works is before you can add attorney's fees to somebody, before you lien their property, you have to give them essentially 2 letters. And so that's what we've doing, and it is just as you say, to give folks a chance. Maybe they didn't realize. When you lien somebody's property, if it's ever happened to you, it's pretty serious. And so the state wants to make sure that people have the correct notice before, in particular, attorney's fees are applied. So it's really, we're following the state statute process.
What happens once the books are closed here for property taxes and trash fees? And you give them 30 days, which takes them to the end of January, and they sell their house January 15th. We lose out on that money.
No, so the amounts that are owed, we say runs with the property. And so if that notice goes out and we don't get payment within the day, then we will go ahead and lien that property. And it sticks, and the new owner will have to pay for it. So we don't lose the money.
So the new owner would have to pay back taxes?
They would, because the previous owner did not pay it, and they can take it up with that person. But we don't want to lose out, obviously, but we also want to follow the law that's required to collect these and lien these properties properly. Because if you don't give them the notice and you lien it, and then it could be an issue if somebody challenges the lien.
I also sent an email to all of council and to you, sir, asking if there was taping procedures, even though this is under the Sunshine Act, that a resident's allowed to tape. Your response was that you would look to see if there was any type of protocol as to us being notified where this tape is being displayed, who is editing the tape, etc. Is there any type of procedures or policies that's been found?
There really isn't, Councilwoman, and the Sunshine Act specifically allows folks to tape public meetings, and so what they do with that tape is up to them. I mean, there's not carte blanche if they edit it to make you say something illegal and you suffer because of that. Certainly they would be open to defamation or slander claims. But this is something that, again, when you look at the state statute superseding anything we'd like to do, it specifically says people can videotape meetings, and it's a public meeting, and they could tape it and then post it on a website saying, we don't like everything Parkside's doing, look at this tape.
Thank you.
Do we need to ask if people are taping?
You don't have to ask, and we can talk about what procedures we could put in place, but it would be very limited what we could do.
Because like right now we ask, or we've been asking at the beginning of these if people are taping to say that.
I understand. We can talk about that. I'm not sure that violates anything, but I'd want to take a look at that. I mean, again, when you're talking about videotaping a meeting, Sunshine Act says you can do it. So it's not interpreting, it's what the statute says. So I'm happy to look at that to see what further protocols we could put into place, but it would be limited.
Anything else for the solicitor at this time? At this time, we will do call to citizens. You come up, state name, address.
Again, Mark Campbell. Questions for the solicitor. 204 PA Code 811.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't hear what you were saying.
Okay, Mark Campbell. For the solicitor, Mr. Amuso. 204 PA Code 811. 1.5 discusses the fees that a solicitor or any attorney charges on behalf of their client. I'm well aware of what we have paid Mr. Willis over the last however many years he's served us. It's going on 20 years, give or take. And I'm aware of the figures that we are paying you. Now, in the discussion of fixed fees versus the contingency, Mr. Willis was always around $3,000–4,000, give or take, for the contingency, basically his retainer. And he charges $165 an hour for work. Did a lot of pro bono stuff, knowing our situation as a small borough. And here we're giving you a contingency of $20,000 and sucking up $185 an hour for all your work. I'm not going to quibble over $20 an hour. And I'm sure you'll do a fine job. Looks like you've already been on top of a lot of stuff already. Is this $20,000 going to be held in trust while we pay you $185 an hour for everything you do, and then we get that $20,000 back at the end of your term? Or are you going to be taking all your hourly rate out of that $20,000 until the $20,000 is eaten up, and then we just simply pay you for everything else at $185 an hour moving forward?
Sure. So it's a little different in both those things, and we've provided a fee engagement letter to the borough, which should be a public document for anyone who wants to see it. So the way it works is we get paid, the $20,000 retainer annually covers a lot of work. So what happens is we get paid, it's 20,000 divided by 12, which is a little over 16.
1666 a month.
Right. And so that covers, like, for instance, my attendance at this meeting, all my communications with the elected officials. And so when the borough sees its bill, it sees all the hours that we're doing under that 1666, but that's all you get charged, is the 1666. So for instance, I think, this month's bills, it would have been a lot more, but it falls under the 1666 for attendance at meetings, communication, and research done for the elected officials. The $185 kicks in for other more separate complicated matters. So we get paid the $1666 a month, and it just goes right into our firm's accounts, and we spend it on operating the firm. But for that, you're actually getting a lot more than the $1666 at the hourly rate. And then if it's something additional, I'll let the president know about what this is and say, okay, this is going to be done at our hourly rate. And so that's how it works.
Okay, and I'm glad you explained that, because basically, again, going back over his term as our solicitor, you're looking at maybe between $22,000, $25,000, $26,000. Your all total is what we've been charged for everything. A couple years ago, we had some additional right-to-know stuff, kept him in court a number of occasions, and that year's budget for him ended up being, Shirley, about $35,000, give or take, right? And then over the last couple of years, it's gone right back down to where it has been. We're looking at least probably $3,000 or $4,000 more a year for you, give or take. And I guess in the big scheme of things, that's really small change, but I just wanted to be sure, based on what the statute of Pennsylvania says, that we're all in agreement that certain things are going to be done a certain way. I'm well aware that there are some ethical rules involved, so I'm sure you will not be crossing those lines.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask an offshoot of that, so that I'm clear? When you reach $20,000 on your retainer or your trust or escrow, or whatever you want to call it, then you will charge us $185 per hour.
No, so I sorry if there's confusion. So
Yes, because of the way it's written, and it's written to say $185, and you have the word plus in there, a $20 yearly retainer at $166.6.
sure. So in the fee agreement letter, we talk about, so there's an annual retainer of $20,000, which is payable in the monthly installments of $1666. Says this retainer includes all preparation and attendance at monthly council meetings, all routine questions related to meeting agenda and process, the drafting of all routine organizational resolutions, etc., and all communications with borough council members. So it includes that, right? So the idea, maybe I should use a flat fee. There's a flat fee portion that's what that covers. So it's not, that can never run out, right? The 20,000 covers myself. I have a colleague here as well, Sam Newell. You're not getting paid to charge any extra. We're here. You know, when you email us and say, hey, what are the rules about this? And I say to Sam, hey, you know, research a little bit this for the councilwoman. You're not getting paid, or you're not getting charged any extra for this. That never runs out. But what happens is, as you mentioned, right? So there's a right to know lawsuit, or we have to go to appeals court on a some kind of
Tax lien.
tax lien or something. That's when the extra money kicks in. Or if somebody says, hey, we want to redo this whole section of something, we say, okay, well, this is not routine. This is going to be complicated.
So anything over and above the normal is $185 per hour?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
But there's also people in your firm who charge lower rates.
The paralegal charges lower rates when it comes to
$125 for a paralegal.
Which we didn't have that with Mr. Wills. Mr. Wills did everything. So,
That's
so
correct.
there could be things that would be less expensive with this firm. So I think this is an issue to worry about if we go over budget. I don't think we're going to go over budget.
Let's hope not.
All right, moving on. Sorry.
Andrew Slowick. I hate to piggyback on this gentleman, but I have my two questions are, because last month was very long. Are we paying more for this gentleman in legal terms and our financial people? Are they costing us more than our people from last year or the years before?
At this time, they're budgeted a certain amount.
I'm not asking that. Are we being paid these people more than if we had the same firms from last year? Are we getting paid? Are we paying them more?
Is his retainer fee more than Mr. Wills? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Was Mr. Wills charging for emails and phone calls? According to Mr. Wills was billing, like if we sent him an email, the time that he would take to answer and respond to that email was billed at the hourly rate. Those kind of communications with Mr. Amuso are not being billed. So his retainer fee is larger, but there is more included in that retainer fee, as Ms. Purcival just mentioned, and they just had the discussion back and forth. All regular, standard business operations, resolutions, things like that are covered under the retainer. Okay.
Okay, and how about our financial
Uh,
costs? Is this firm costing us more than the one we had before?
No, it's not.
Okay, as long as I know. Thank you.
Hello, Michael DeFiorio. And I want to keep the ball rolling with some questions about the solicitor. I know we keep going back and forth, and you're saying about a flat fee per month, and it's also listed as a retainer, which I think are two drastically different things. My impression of the retainer was that it was basically a deposit held in escrow, and you work down from it. Will this money be held in escrow?
So it won't, and for the reasons I stated. And look, this is common language when it comes to municipal law. You could, though, also call it a flat fee. And again, the idea is not that at some point you're going to run out of the $20,000. $20,000, if we have a special meeting to vote on something, and I'm here, that still falls under the amount. If every council member calls me every day, it's going to be the same amount. So the $20,000 flat fee covers, as Ms. Councilwoman Purcival stated, basically run-of-the-mill normal business. It's the hourly fee kicks in when there's litigation or something more complicated or complex.
So basically, the $1,667 a month will cover unlimited access to you within reason.
Yes.
Only won't cover anything that's not in the norm.
Right, so litigation, again, we have the lower ratio of paralegals and liens. If somebody says, we want to do some complicated new maneuver legally, and I'll let them know up front. I would say to Mr. President, okay, we can do this for you, but that's going to be on our hourly rate.
Okay, thank you. One last question. Is the contract available to the public?
It's just a fee agreement letter.
We can make it available.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Sarah Haynes. Some of my friends, residents, who are not able to stand up here due to anxiety or whatever, have asked questions to the council, the president, and have not received responses. I'm just advocating for them in hopes that are they being read, and are you planning on responding to them?
I have read them. I did not have a response to send back. Some of the concerns that came to me, I was able to address this past week, and I just have not had a chance to respond to those emails that have been sent.
Okay, thank you. Michelle Stroback.
I'm seeing a lot of questions being asked by other council members pertaining to the solicitor. When you decide on bringing someone new onto council as a staff, shouldn't that be discussed with everybody? So that other council members are not having these questions here during our time to then ask questions that are piggybacking on ours. Like, I feel that as a council as a whole, everybody should have been included on all that so that that wouldn't have happened. And now as a public, we're asking these questions too, because there seems to be a concern of how our tax money is being spent. So that's one of my questions is, is that discussed or is it just done separately?
As it was stated at the last meeting, we did have a special session,
Right.
executive session, where we met with professional staff to discuss those questions.
Who met with professional staff?
All of council.
All of council? Were
Yes.
there at that meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because it was in my understanding, it wasn't. So that's why I asked, and I was at the last meeting. So I was questioning that. And the other question was the emails not being answered to residents. I mean, we're concerned about something. I feel that proper email etiquette is for it to be answered. I've been in the professional world. Proper email etiquette is within a few days, not next council meeting it being addressed at this meeting.
I apologize, and I will try to do a better job at that.
Mr. President, may I interject? The young lady's question is, we did not know, or some of us did not know anything about the professional staff until 45 minutes before the meeting on January 3rd. We were not included on any of the interviews with the new treasurer or the new solicitor. So I don't want the public to think that we were included on that decision or interviews. We were not. There was 3 of us that were not included.
Okay.
So I'd like that on the record too. We were not
Thank you.
included.
Back to Call the Citizens.
I'm sorry.
Judy Saunders. While we're talking about emails, I would really like to have somebody tell me who has ownership of the emails that were given to the borough for the email blast. Have we resolved that issue?
We are in the process of resolving that issue.
So we still don't know who has those, and the borough is still not in possession of them.
I mean, the best I can report at this time is that we are in the process of trying to resolve that issue.
Can I ask the solicitor a question? I'm sorry, you seem to be the guy of the hour. If I gave my email with the disclaimer that it was going to the borough only, and my email was given to a third party, is the borough liable for my email, my personal email, being given to someone else? And I'm asking that specifically as a resident who has been doxxed by a former member of this council. So I'd really like to know who has control of my emails right now.
So, I mean, again, as the Borough Council President said, it's being resolved. I mean, look, I'm the Borough Solicitor, so I don't want to opine on the liability of the borough in a public meeting. So we're trying to resolve this issue, that's all I can tell
Do
you.
we know if the resolution will be by the next meeting?
I mean, hopefully, but, I'll work with the Council President on that.
One last question, I'm so sorry, I know I only have 3 minutes, I'm used to an 8-timer, so I'm a little off schedule. Is there any way, since the person who does have the emails is an employee, that the council can compel him as an employee of the borough to turn over those emails?
Again, right now, we're working on trying to resolve this.
Okay, thank you.
That's it, I'm sorry, it's the best I can give you.
Here, I haven't answered your question. As soon as I get this done. Gentleman, Robert Germanovich. Our Are all council members being consulted before a staff member is added, like a webmaster or something like that in the borough?
No.
All council members are not?
In case of the webmaster, the answer is no.
Okay. Now, this will kind of opine on to Judy's question. Pennsylvania State Constitution represents a duty of care when handling private personal information digitally. The duty of care means that, and I'm sure the solicitor will affirm this, that you have a duty of responsibility to personal information when it is delivered to you, whether it's social security numbers, email addresses, or personal names and social security numbers. Anyway, that being said, that answers kind of Judy's question. I want to make sure that the council is doing their due diligence when hiring digital professionals that are going to have access to the borough's data and archiving. I want to make sure that a full scope due diligence is done to make sure that a professional that is hired, whether paid or otherwise, that is going to have access to critical data is going to be vetted properly for credentials and everything.
We will do, I try to do my best. Okay.
Okay, so the person who will be hired in any digital capacity in the borough.
If there is a hired position that is not appointed by the president, yes, we will.
So volunteers can access the data.
What's that?
You said if there's a hired position. That was your wording just now.
Right, because I have appointed somebody in that role.
Right. Now, you know, government accountability, has to be a trail of who has access to the data as well. And I'm sure Mr. Amuso could lay a law book this thick that describes that information.
And if you would like to know who has that, I will meet with you later on and we can go through that with you.
I would like that, thank you. One more person behind me seems to want to speak.
Minnie DiDomenico. This kind of goes off of disclaimer. The disclaimer says the Borough of Parkside does not say council, does not say president. I'm Parkside Borough, so is everybody else in this room. So if I go up to whoever has these emails, I want the email, you going to give it to me? No, you're going to tell me go pack sand, correct? The disclaimer does not say anything about council. It says the borough residents. That's what it says. So you going to give me the email if I ask you for the email?
Right now, we're trying to address the issue with the email blast.
But you're blaming this one person who probably doesn't even have them anymore.
I have not blamed anyone.
I'm not saying you.
Well,
Other
you
people
just
are.
said you were addressing me.
Okay,
and you
other
said-
people are.
And I'm answering the question as I did before. We're currently in the process of trying to rectify this situation.
I think you need to reread language.
Last call for anybody for call to citizens.
Mr. President, may I be excused to address council?
Yes, you may be excused from the meeting.
I need to diet.
Shirley Purcival. Members of council, I want to address something that happened last month that several residents have brought to my attention and has not been addressed so far by any resident. Last month, a gentleman in the audience mumbled several obscenities. Not just at me as an elected official, I've heard it before, but at members of the audience with a child present, junior members of the fire company present. This gentleman has not apologized. I don't believe he will. But I wanted to bring that to council's attention that no way should any member of the public use that terminology, not just against us as elected officials, but with children present in the audience. Everybody has skirted around this issue. I have sent you, Mr. President, emails several times. Several members of the public which are here tonight had also sent emails and they've never been addressed. I feel that's uncaring and irresponsible of this council not to address the issue. It was also brought up on Mrs. Guy's Facebook site, and I'm quoting, that a local Karen requested freedom papers from a black man. Not only did Mrs. Guy allow this to happen and continue to have it stated on there, I found that anybody who describes a person by the color of their skin is irreproachable. There's no excuse to describe anybody by the color of their skin. for anybody who does not know what freedom papers mean, they're documents declaring the free state of a black person to show that that person is free and not to be kidnapped and sold back into slavery. They serve, freedom papers serve as an affidavit for their free status. I'd also like to know, Mr. President, if there is in any way that we can stop on any social media site such terminology to describe any human being and to put this type of terminology to rest.
Ms. Purcival, I might be able to help you with the answer to that question. The social medias, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the various organizations are private organizations, and you can solicit them by reporting the comments you see as hate speech, and they are very swift when hate speech is engaged. They're not so fast when it's misinformation about health or masks or things like that. But that maligns someone of a protected class is usually in Facebook, and so in my experience seeing it on Facebook and on Instagram is addressed very quickly. Twitter, not so much.
All right. It should have been addressed, and it has
I'm sorry,
not
Mr. Sweigart.
We appreciate.
It should have been addressed by this council. Those remarks shouldn't be in this society and in this community. And I took offense to it, and I took offense to the remarks that were made under somebody's breath. And this council has not addressed it, Mr. President, and that's why I'm here at the podium tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I apologize, Mr. President. I just wanted to help.
No problem. Yeah. I just in case it was a more detailed answer, I was going to say just reverse it later.
Thank you, Mr.
Last
President.
call for call to citizens.
Lisa Casharel, just to follow up on something that Ms. Percival said, this council has not done a bang-up job in the past on calling out horrible things that have been said at meetings by council members, not just members of the public. So,
excuse me, Mr. President, the gentleman who said those and printed those words demanded an apology, sent a letter to the newspaper when slang terms were used at that council meeting, and he publicly...
slang terms meaning sexual harassment. That's what...
And do you really
Okay.
feel having a council member called the B and C word is not appropriate with a child in the audience and other people here?
I'm not
Do you
saying
think that's
that language
appropriate?
is appropriate. I'm saying that
ladies.
the righteousness of calling for council action on an issue like this when in the past it has been ignored and even egged on is a little rich.
Hi, Maria DiBattista. I had no intention of getting up here tonight, but just listening to comments at the very end, it has made me go back to why I'm here. So this is only my second borough meeting. I came many, many years ago, and I've lived in Parkside for 20 years. I've been a proud citizen here, and I'm not anymore. It's really sad. We're in the newspaper, we're a borough this big. We tell our children to get along with each other. We send them to school, we tell them to be kind to one another, to be fair with one another. And yet you have a small group that can't work together. We all have different feelings. We all have different political values. We all have different ways of looking at things. We're different races. This is the most diverse community. And yet nobody can learn to play nice together. It's embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing living here now. And I hate to say that. I never thought I would say those words. I moved in here as a single parent with my son going to Parkside Elementary School, and I was proud to be here. And I am now at a point where when I see things, I'm just appalled. I raised my son through this community. He has grown up to be a productive member of society. He owns his own home. He's doing great. I am glad he didn't grow up here now, because this is sad. And everybody should be ashamed at how they treat one another. I see these comments, and everybody should go home and look in the mirror. Be kind to one another. If nothing over the past 2 years, with COVID, with everything we've gone through, if that can't make you appreciate life, appreciate situations, then I'm sorry. But man, this has been a reality check for me the past 2 years. Everybody needs to wake up and realize, be nice to one another, because that's all we've got. Thank you.
Sarah.
You already had your public comment time.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Saunders.
I already had mine too.
Yes.
I'm gonna sit back down.
You as well. Anybody else who has not come up for public comment?
We need to have a check of
Okay. Moving on. Any unfinished business? Moving on to new business.
I'd like to propose resolution 1850, a resolution of Parkside Borough, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to appoint a borough secretary. Whereas section 1111 of the Pennsylvania Borough Code authorizes the appointment of a borough secretary with the approval of the borough council to assist in daily management of the borough, attendance of all meetings of the council, and maintenance of full meeting minutes. And whereas the Borough Council of the Borough of Parkside seeks to appoint a borough secretary in order to maintain continuity in the operations of the borough office, and whereas the position of borough secretary is currently vacant, and whereas the Borough of Parkside proposes to appoint Tamika Stamus as Parkside Borough Secretary, now therefore the Borough Council of the Borough of Parkside does hereby resolve as follows. Number one, the appointment of Tamika Stamus as Borough Secretary for any and all duties as described under section 1111 of the Pennsylvania Borough Code is approved. Number two, Ms. Stamus shall be responsible for any and all duties as described by the Borough Code, in addition to performing any and all duties as assigned by the Council of the Borough of Parkside. Number three, all resolutions or parts of resolutions that are inconsistent with this resolution shall be and hereby are repealed to the extent of such inconsistency. And number four, the resolution shall be effective as of the date of adoption.
I have a motion for adoption resolution 1850. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving resolution 1850, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So moved. Unanimous.
Second.
I have a motion second.
I don't think we ever approved the meeting minutes from the last.
We have to wait till next month to approve the meeting minutes because my cat sat on my laptop and deleted 3/4 of the meeting minutes that I typed up on Sunday. So I have to retype them all. So don't use a touchscreen computer laptop when you have a cat around. So I have a motion for adjournment and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Well, nobody's opposed. Have a good night, folks.